You ever end up in a random black box and you're just like, hey, there's a button there. Wonder what happens if I grab it and press it with my index finger. Oh snap, I've been abducted by aliens! Today, we have a very simple tutorial showing you how to connect events. When the world is started, we disable this trigger that we're all inside of. Then we connect trigger to the trigger enter event. So when that trigger is entered, we want to know when is that trigger entered. And then we connect it to our local event trigger enter. This script runs on our button object, which is a grabbable object. And so when the index trigger is pressed by a player, we then enable this trigger. So it starts at the world start is disabled, then we enable it. And since we connected to the trigger event, we can now respawn that player to our alien spaceship on that respawn point up there. Let me quickly show you how we did this. So down here at the bottom, you'll see there's connect to event. You drag this over. Then over here, new variable, which you'll label object, and we'll call this trigger2. We take trigger2 because this is the trigger we're going to be connecting to, and replace self with trigger2. Now we can check when is that trigger entered, and we can connect it to, let's say we didn't want to connect it to the local event trigger enter, we wanted to separate it. We could connect to a custom event called trigger to enter. When event is received, trigger to enter. And now you'd think that this would work, but it doesn't without clicking this plus button. Once you've pressed that, we need to create a player ID, and I'm going to call it player ID, PLID. And now we are receiving it with a player ID. And because the trigger enter comes with a player ID, we have to receive with a player ID, otherwise we won't receive the event. And now that we have this set up, we'll grab debug print, and we'll scroll down and grab a generic string message, and we'll just say hi. And then we will create a trigger. There we go. There's our trigger. And we will then connect to that trigger. So when the player enters that trigger, we're not going to disable it or enable it. Just when the player enters that trigger, it's going to send our debug print hi. We come down here to our grabbable object, and we now open up this. We then grab the reference cable, plug that into trigger 2, and now if we come down here as a player, and it's in here somewhere, I think it was right here. So I walk in this area, we'll now see that the trigger was entered twice, and so we've received hi from our debug print. We can clear that out now. And so anything you wanted to happen when that trigger was entered, you can now put into that event trigger to enter, and now you've connected to multiple triggers. So this is a grabbable object that's connected to multiple triggers. That's pretty amazing. And so there's a lot of applications for this. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye!